morning. Welcome to Business 360, where business, markets, and the economy come into full view. I'm Margaux Salcedo, and this is the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Global debt watcher Moody's keeps the Philippines' investment grade rating, but slashes the country's full-year growth forecast to just 3.6%. DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan joins us on that and on poverty hitting a record low. Plus, the United States launches what it calls Operation Economic Outcast, an all-out sanctions campaign to isolate Iran. The Philippines holds on to its investment-grade standing, but Moody's is signaling a much tougher year ahead. The global debt watcher affirmed the country at Baa2 with a stable outlook. Moody says this reflects expectations that the country's fiscal numbers will stabilize over the next 2 years, supported by a gradual recovery in growth and the government's continued commitment to narrowing the budget deficit. But the picture is weaker for near-term growth. Moody's now sees the economy expanding just 3.6% this year, down from 4.4% in 2025. The agency blames higher food and energy costs, as well as a sharp contraction in public investment following the flood control probe. Moody's expects growth to rebound to 5.3% in 2027 as public infrastructure spending normalizes. The Philippines has made significant progress in bringing down poverty, but the economic growth needed to sustain that progress is now under pressure. With us now is Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, Secretary of the Department of Economy, Planning and Development. Good morning, Sec. RC.
Good morning, Margaux.
It's an honor to have you here today on Business 360.
Same here.
First of all, congratulations on achieving the goal of single-digit poverty levels. I still remember back in 2022, the first few Philippine economic briefings when the economic managers said that the goal of this administration is to hit upper middle income status and single-digit poverty levels, and you have achieved that. How did we make it this far?
Well, in particular, the growth has, except for this year, has been reasonably good, with growth last year slowing down a bit to 4.4%, but still hitting for this administration, the first half of this administration, about 5% growth. The nice thing about that growth, especially between 2023 and 2025, was that it's accompanied by low inflation. Inflation in 2024 was just about 3.2%, and it came down to 1.7% in 2025. Those were low numbers, and those were very good numbers for poverty reduction.
Although, in fact, Sec, you also achieved quite a feat early in 2023 because I think, if I remember correctly, because of the Ukraine war, at the time, inflation hit 8%.
Exactly. No, we managed to reduce that inflation to 1.7% by 2025. No? The other thing is interesting story about that you can make out of the 2023-2025 family income expenditure surveys, that if you look at the distribution of the growth of household incomes, you find that growth was distributionally neutral, meaning the overall income growth in nominal terms was something like 22%.
Yes,
but
I noticed that, Sec.
if you look at all the deciles, from the top 10%, top 20% to the middle portion of our population, all the way to the top 10%, you see that the increases in their nominal incomes were over 20%. And that contrasts that with the inflation of just averaging 5% cumulatively for the 2 years. So there's a lot of income growth across the distribution. So what you can say about the growth in between 2023 and 2025 is that it's quite inclusive. It benefits every groups of our population.
let's talk about income because you mentioned it. And in fact, the mean per capita income increased by 22%.
In nominal terms, yeah.
In nominal terms, it says here that in 2021, it was at 72,340, increased by 17.9%. In 2023, 85,291, and then it jumped in 2025 to 104,072, increasing by 22%. Yeah. So does this mean that our Filipino people are now actually earning more?
Well, during that period, it's pretty clear that Filipinos across the distribution, income distribution, did realize higher incomes, as I said, over 20% between 2023 and 2025 in nominal terms, while inflation was only cumulatively 5%. So in real terms, purchasing power increased during that period. Of course, the situation now is slightly different. Right?
For 2026, because of the global headwinds.
Because of the, yes.
And I also noticed here, Sec, that for poverty incidence, it's 9.7%, but for the families, it actually is now 6.4%.
Yeah, of course.
So could we distinguish between that? Because 6.4%, that's even, that's definitely single digit.
Now, the reason for that is families of poor population usually have higher number of children than richer families. So that's why we used population as the proper metric, because it involves more individuals, for the same number of families, for poor families compared to rich families.
And then, Sec, how do you factor in what a family earns or what an individual earns? Kasama po ba dito yung mga ayuda and also maybe what their OFW members of the family are bringing in through remittances? Are those factored in to what a family or individual earns, bringing their income level up?
Yeah. When we measure income, family incomes, we take into account not just the cash incomes or wage incomes, but all sources of incomes, whether cash or in-kind. In-kind transfers like gifts, for example, are included in the count. Remittances are part of the incomes that we capture.
So there are some critics who have said that while this is a good figure, in some parts of the country there are regional differences. How do we address that, sir?
Well, there are regional differences because that's expected because of the situations of the various areas of the country differ. Some are very much dependent on agriculture. Some are much more exposed to vulnerabilities, and some are so much more isolated than others, both physically and digitally. So there are regions who have a much higher poverty than the 9.7% average. So the Philippine Development Plan
addresses this?
addresses that issue, focusing or emphasizing on connecting the regions,
Yes,
especially lagging regions, connected with the fast-growing areas of the country, so that those opportunities become available for lagging regions or areas as well.
We had your Undersecretary Yusek Rose here, and she did mention that there are regional development councils na tinututukan din po ng DepDev. Separate from that and making sure that the growth is inclusive across all regions, another factor that people are looking at is the sustainability of ayudas. Some people have been criticizing that, in fact, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry had mentioned that we should be investing instead in infrastructure and not on these social welfare programs. But ayuda has factored in to helping address poverty. So how do we reconcile that, sir? And perhaps also for sustainability, how can we help our people get over these ayudas by actually earning more?
There are many lessons that a country like us can learn in the governance of welfare programs. No? We have a good one. The 4Ps is a good system. It was informed by experiences abroad and our own experiences now. I can't imagine that we can completely get away from ayudas. No country has ever done that because they are needed. For especially that these are needed for addressing vulnerabilities or shocks suffered or faced by households. In advanced countries, of course, there are formal institutions like insurance programs, wage, but a country like us has quite a weak insurance programs yet. We need access for households facing shocks. Like the thing about our country is that we are so much more exposed to
Typhoons,
shocks,
natural calamities.
calamities than many other countries, and that's why you need to have this ayuda even more. But it must be designed properly. It must be targeted properly so that the fiscal implications of undertaking or implementing ayuda will not be too burdensome and will be sustainable.
With single-digit poverty levels being achieved, and you had actually mentioned that the components for this were the expanding economic opportunities for our people, but also effective social protection. Do you believe that the social protection programs of the government have in fact been very helpful?
I think it does. It has been helpful, especially the 4Ps, and some studies have shown, and there will be a forum in the coming days and the social protection system. But there are some programs that are working well, but I think that these
Overall,
programs need to be tightened, need better governance. And the institutions surrounding it, so that the benefits of this program will reach the intended beneficiaries
and be sustained
and remain sustainable. We can, I think, make these ayudas more effective and can reduce the overall cost, but still achieve better results.
With respect to the income, Sec, how has it been throughout the years? I noticed that for the comparison of these levels, you compared 2021, 2023, and 2025. Of course, one of the factors here is that the Gini coefficient, and we're looking at that. So could you tell us about how this metric is used?
Oh, of course, apart from the poverty, as I mentioned earlier, just to put the context, no? The impact of economic growth and poverty depends on two things: the rate of growth and the distribution of the gains of that growth. And a metric that we often use to accompany poverty incidence is what we call the Gini ratio, which measures the overall distribution of incomes or expenditures in a society. Usually it has a value of 0 to 1, 0 being perfect equality, 1 being the the perfect inequality, where only one person gets all the benefits of growth. We are usually, for so many decades, we have been usually above 0.4, which for the World Bank is a number that puts us into high inequality category of countries. But in the recent 2 or 3 surveys, years of family income expenditure surveys, so that numbers come down to 0.39, which is which translates an improvement in the distribution of incomes, and that has quite a significant impact on poverty, because it does mean that a higher proportion of the benefits of growth are going to the lower income distribution, part of that distribution.
So less inequality.
So less inequality. But that's only one indicator of inequality. There are so many dimensions of inequality that I often looked at also.
But
income inequality is one, but there is also inequality with respect to access to health, access to education, access to social protection, access to housing, and so on. And these are usually measured, and we have some metrics for that as well.
Speaking of metrics, Sec, with respect to the poverty threshold, there are some critics who said that the measure or the ruler for this is not right. Could we address that? What have you been using as your basis in measuring this throughout the years 2021, 2023, and 2025?
When we started in 2022, when we devised a PDP, we set a baseline for poverty using the current poverty methodology or measurement at that time. And our goal was to reduce that number that existed then to single digit. Now, we have to be using consistent ruler, to use our metaphor, to measure that progress over time, to say or to find out whether our programs, policies, strategies are working, are delivering to achieve that objective. So that's what we have done. We stick to that metric, and of course we adjust that for changes in cost of living, for inflation, and measure the progress. Now, the controversy may be, or part of the controversy or the claim is that metric is now low, and we agree that deserves a review, and we have already almost completed the review of the metric. But my view is that if you look at the at where we are today, I think that it's proper that we use the same metric throughout, and then maybe in the next government, the next administration, they can set their own metric standard to measure their progress. In the meantime, we are preparing for update of the thresholds. And by the way, some also say that because we are now an upper middle income country, we should now use the metric poverty threshold for upper middle income countries.
Can you do that? Not yet.
No, I think that's I think not quite right, because what that means is, first, no country has ever done that. That when you move from one year to another year, you pass, you graduate from lower income to upper middle income country, you suddenly increase your threshold by almost twice. For example, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, China, including Vietnam, they entered or not Vietnam. They entered that upper income class category years ago, but they are still using national poverty lines that pertain to the lower middle income country.
For consistency.
For consistency, yeah. I guess I don't know, but that's what they have been doing. We see that I have just look at the various poverty lines of various countries and where we are in relation and what is expected of us given our per capita income. We are indeed below, slightly below the what's expected as poverty threshold for given our current per capita income, gross national income per capita, and we need to adjust that.
But maybe in the next administration na po.
That is recommended. I think that's usually the practice in many countries. But still, we can help that process going forward so that things can turn smoothly.
Yes, looking forward po. Earlier, if you heard the news, Moody's had recalibrated our GDP growth rate, looking forward to just 3.6%. Although I remember from the DBCC meeting that they said that it's also recalibrated to 3.5 to 4.5%. Is this going to affect our poverty threshold level? And is this a fair assessment by Moody's?
You mean the poverty incidence? Yeah.
Poverty incidence, yes.
Well, that's still quite a growth. Our population growth is 1.7%, right? And so if you are able to grow at 3.5 to 4.5, which is what we are targeting for this year, then that's still quite sizable growth. And that's still going to be positive for poverty reduction. The only challenge that we have right now is, apart from the recovering growth, is the inflation. We have to reduce that inflation further down.
And so final question po, sir, are things looking up for the Philippines? It's been a great achievement po, reaching upper middle income status and our poverty threshold levels being single digit now. However, we do have the challenge of the low GDP growth rate. How do we address this moving forward to finally achieve our Philippine development plan?
I think, number one is that we need to reverse the consumer and business sentiments toward the positive side, and I think that we're going there. And a big portion of that, I would say, is our ability to get investment going, particularly public investments. I think it's the major, it's a sharp contraction in public investment in the last 2 quarters, now 3 quarters, that contributed to the sharp slowdown in GDP. And then it's complicated by the Middle East conflict that brought up inflation. So all these combinations led to that dip in the business and consumer sentiments. Hopefully, I think in the second half we are catching up with the public investments, and we hope that will also trigger improvement in confidence in the public sector, in the private sector.
Well, things are looking up. So congratulations, Sec RC, on these achievements. And really, you've been doing a great job in our economic transformation towards inclusive and sustainable growth.
Thank you, Margaux. Thank you, everyone.
On that note, we're taking a quick break. Coming up, the U.S. launches Operation Economic Outcast with a warning to other countries still doing business with Iran. And the Philippines is looking at more sites for AI hubs beyond New Clark City. Keep it here on Business 360.
Every day, new stories are being served. The freshest takes. The stories that everyone's talking about. The Daily Dish. Make sure you don't miss a thing. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Welcome back to Business 360. I'm Margaux Salcedo. The United States is escalating economic pressure on Iran with a new campaign to cut off Tehran's financial and trade ties across the world. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calls it Operation Economic Outcast. Treasury has sanctioned 60 individuals, entities, and vessels tied to Iran's nuclear and missile programs, its cyber operations, and its oil revenue. Washington is also threatening secondary sanctions against countries and companies that continue doing business with Iran.
Iran's enablers purchase, transport its petroleum. They facilitate the flow of its finances through exchange houses and free trade zones. They welcome Iran's flights and maintain registries on its behalf. They turn a blind eye to seaborne fuel transfers and overland transits. They condone illicit use of their banks, all the while concealing the extent of their complicity. The President is making phone calls to world leaders with specific requests to cease their interactions with the regime. We are already seeing results.
The biggest test could be China, Iran's biggest oil buyer, though major Chinese financial institutions were not included in the latest round. Iran, for its part, calls the warnings, quote, nonsense, and said that it is prepared with a 2-year plan. The Philippines is looking beyond New Clark City for projects under the U.S.-led Pax Silica initiative. The Department of Trade and Industry says the proposed AI industrial hub in New Clark City is just one of several projects being considered to build out the country's AI supply chain. Other possible locations include a separate industrial hub focused on data centers and a national hub for integrated circuit design in Metro Manila. DTI says government and the developers have already agreed on terms for the LGU in NCR.
Ito hindi sa punch ng gobyerno that you have to build your own roads, bring your own power, and then secure and reuse your own water. So yun ho ang usapan natin dun sa magdi-develop dun sa New Clark City.
Akbayan Representative Percy Sendanya says he is more alarmed now that multiple sites are involved.
Medyo mas na-alarma tayo knowing na multiple sites pala ito. Lalo-lalo na po nakaka-bother yung usapin ng use of resources. Medyo mahirap pong sabihin na bring your own water and electricity kasi alam naman po natin, pag tubig, dun po magtatap sa ating pong water table yan. So hindi po infinite ang ating tubig, finite po yan at kailangan po yan na ating mga kababayan.
In other news, the Securities and Exchange Commission is looking at raising the minimum capital for stockbrokers above the current 100 million pesos. SEC Chairman Francisco Lim says the review comes as the Philippine Stock Exchange moves on its own plan to require all trading participants to hold 100 million pesos in capital by 2029. The SEC says many of its brokers have been investigated for manipulating the market and for breaking compliance rules, and they had very little capital. Raising the bar could trigger mergers among the exchange's roughly 130 trading participants and weed out undercapitalized players. And that's Business 360. I'm Margaux Salcedo. Thank you for joining us. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.